Good evening, everyone. My name is Alyssa Michelle, and I'm the founder of an organization called Powerful Pathways. We're an urban planning and design agency based in Boston, and I'd like to present to you the Mattapan Mapping Project tonight. So the Mattapan Mapping Project is essentially a community-based initiative to collect and share a combination of quantitative and qualitative data to empower residents to be able to take action around land use and housing challenges in their community. Specifically, we're talking about opportunities for a neighborhood in Boston that has often gone underlooked and underserved. So how did this get started? Well, back in 2016 and 2017, I was working as a researcher with a group called Urban Boston, which is a participatory action research entity. And we were conducting focus groups in Mattapan and East Boston. And in particular, I was trying to understand, how does transportation trigger displacement? And in that conversation, the residents posed two key questions. The first being, how do we know what we need to understand in order to know what to do to circumvent and prevent displacement? The second question being, how will longtime residents actually benefit from the growth opportunities that we're seeing with all the development happening in Boston? So when we talk about Mattapan, Mattapan in particular is a neighborhood that has a unique history. For one thing, 84% of residents identify as people of color and immigrants. And there's a large percentage of youth and elders in Mattapan. As a matter of fact, we have more youth ages 0 to 17 than any other neighborhood in the city. There are also 68% of households have a lower income than the city average, and 60% are facing housing burden, meaning that they're paying more than half of their income towards their housing. And that has been steadily increasing over time, whereas back in 2000, it was 45%, and today it's 60%. But only 13% of housing is income restricted in the neighborhood. And that number is in steady decline because the majority of new development projects are focused on market rate and middle income housing, despite this being a low income neighborhood. So one thing that you should know about Mattapan is that there's a deep history of activism. After so many years of divestment and disinvestment, residents have really empowered themselves to organize and mobilize across various issues. Like the Neponset River Greenway pictured here, this was a project that was motivated by community residents who organized and got together to extend the Greenway and a bike and walk path from Milton into Mattapan. There's also Almont Park, the library, which was a state-of-the-art LEED building, and Mattapan Open Streets Open Studios, which is a series of creative placemaking and art, public art projects, are all community-led. And in 2018, residents got together and formed a Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council, which is a body that acts as an intermediary between the community and developers, setting what we call community benefit standards. The impetus around this project is really around data capture. And what are some things and challenges that we know about data? Well, for one thing, data can be really hard to track, even for us researchers. It's scattered across different sources. Different city agencies have different information around housing and land use. And it's complex and confusing, and sometimes it's only limited to those quantitative measures. You can't really tell what those numbers actually mean half the time. But what's also particular about data is that it often omits qualitative data, the storytelling, the nuanced pieces around what's happening in the community that only locals can tell you and share. So what we want to do is to create a comprehensive tool that's accessible, coherent, and compiles all this information in an easy source to digest. So this is our team. We are a combination of urban planners, researchers, community organizers, and community members. We have a range of we're intergenerational, and we also bring a lot of different experience around different aspects of research. So the mapping tool itself is essentially a user-friendly, open source platform designed to capture those nuanced neighborhood data, which will affirm and amplify this place-based knowledge. It's participatory action research, which is an important component of our work, which means that community members and community voice are deeply involved in the process. And it also supports what we call participatory planning, For example, the city of Boston is currently undergoing a planning process right now in Mattapan called Plan Mattapan, and the community members need access to information so that they can be better involved in this process. So this is some example of data that we've captured. We've been doing ongoing research around different aspects of land use. What these diagrams represent, it's basically showing you that despite the fact that the median income in the community and the median wages have been relatively stagnant, housing prices have continued to go up dramatically. So that disparate disconnect is leading to people being at deeper risk for being displaced. We're also trying to capture aspects of zoning requirements, because right now, with all these developments that we're seeing happening in and around the city, most of it is about adding more stories to existing zoning. But there's a cost to that. While we want to make sure that we are building more and we're creating more access to housing, community members are raising concerns about losing lighting, not having enough trees. What are other types of environmental justice and climate change aspects that these new projects end up affecting? So we're thinking about different types of stakeholders and different users. And we know that at the core of it, we want Mattapan community members to be our core users. However, we also know that and anticipate that planners and policymakers will also make use of this tool. We envision that other types of researchers across broad interests, tourists, developers themselves might be wanting to learn more about the community through this vehicle, and also general browsers as well. So we've also been doing some deep engagement in the community in addition to our research processes. This picture represents a community workshop that we had done where we asked residents to tag different parts of the community and identify different sites where they'd like to see improvements. We're also looking at different types of recent and pending development projects. There's a massive amount of units that are coming to Mattapan between the last 2 years and the next 4 years. We did some neighborhood walks. This is an image from one of a neighborhood walk that we did last year, where we had residents walk around with us. We had our cameras, and we took different pictures of key sites and sounds, even recording sounds that were auditory representation of the community. We've also been doing oral histories. So we've been interviewing a number of community leaders who have been in the neighborhood over the years to hear about their experiences and how they've been documenting neighborhood change. So this is a still shot from our interview with Earl Falk, who is a community leader and has been in the neighborhood for over 40 years. So ultimately, while there are a lot of different things that we want this tool to serve, at its core, it's about being able to visualize different types of information differently. So you can look up development projects, you can click on an audio and listen to someone telling their oral history, you can watch a video about a key site of meaning, and you can learn about specific sites that residents had organized around. At the end of the day, the way we want to make sure that this remains open source is that we're trying to develop an entry form where a person can submit a suggestion to go into the tool. So they can upload audio or video or images, identify its geographic coordinates. We will review it, and if it makes sense to add it to the mapping tool, we'll add it. So we have a key set of partners that we've been working with over time, and it's been really exciting to work with these partners. Everything from the students, graduate students at Harvard GSD, Northeastern University, who have been assisting us with research, local community organizations like Mattapan Food and Fitness, and at the core, of course, being the Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council. And for the past year and a half, we've been working closely with Code for Boston. But what I'm particularly excited about is the transformation of our partnership with Code. We've been working closely with the volunteers to develop this tool, to prototype and play around with different aspects and elements to make sure that this is as user-friendly as possible. But also, there's a transformative part where our team gets to learn about the coding and development process, and the coders get to learn about the community in a whole new way. So these are the reasons why we need this tool, ultimately. We want to engage so that we're able to help community members and supporters alike mobilize. We want to inform, but we also want to reframe. Part of this effort is also about reframing and removing that stigma that I talked about earlier that Mattapan has been plagued with. We want to destigmatize this community by helping people understand the whole picture, the whole package. And then the other part of why we need this tool is because we're trying to compile aspects like different alternative housing models so people have what they need in order to take action and to be able to have a strong voice around policy change. So thank you very much. You can reach us at www.powerfulpathways.org if you want to learn more information. And thank you to the Code team for all your support.